Passport brothers. I am not one. I don't have that sort of income revenue to travel like that. But I just saw an article where a teacher was killed, and he was killed in Mexico City with two other people. At least they found bodies. I'll put it that way. So a lot of the people were commenting saying that carbon monoxide poisoning can come into play. The host of the chat was saying, they'll use people use certain herbs and all of that stuff. Okay, whether it was foul play or not, here's the thing: Passport brothers, you got to understand if you're the whole sentiment. For those who don't know, was predominantly black men traveling overseas to find women to make wives because they were tired of dealing with American women. It's prevalent in the black culture. Um, but the problem is, at some point, what do these other countries want for their women? Now, if we're not upholding, our own women or having these healthy relations within our own community, why do we think that other communities would tolerate us coming in and invading their women? And it doesn't make sense. So of course, if you go, it try that with your neighbor. Try going to your neighbor and just say, "Hey, I want your daughter," and really just for sex. A lot of these passport guys, it's not like they're trying to wife these women up, and that's part of the problem. A lot of them are just, they're having girlfriends and concubines, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to go so far as to say like prostitutes, because I'm sure a lot of these women honestly are looking for a better way out. And so of course they're going to put their trust in, but I don't think a lot of them are doing it just for money or favor. So again, imagine if, I don't know, rich Russians or French people started coming here and just handpicking, you know, our women in America. People would feel a real sort of way. Now, just imagine how these other countries feel, and just throw in that historically, a lot of these countries, Mexico, Jamaica, Philippines, places like that, have already been ravaged by the first wave of what we know to be ugly Americans just traveling and treating their country poorly. And we send our children to a lot of these places for spring break to act out. Remember the kid who got caned in Singapore? It's things like that that Americans don't look at. And so now here's the second wave, and I'm going to call it the ugly African American, because if it's just black men traveling to a lot of these places, and I don't know, I haven't seen the receipts yet, so a lot of you may be able to, course correct my commentary here, but a lot of this, if you're just going for making people part of the fun experience, you will be met with resistance, especially from the men, because these are their daughters, their sisters, their good friends, people that they would want for themselves, and they're being somewhat sullied by just a guy who comes in. Now, I know a lot of these guys have moved to these other countries. There's a respect for that in the culture if you're learning the language, if you're learning, what they do and how they operate. But if you just come to say, I just want women, this and that, well, okay, but you run certain risks when it comes to that. So I say all that to say, anybody, whether you're a passport brother or not, be careful traveling, because as Americans, or if you're from a first world country, go into these other countries, second and third world countries, you're looked at as a target because you're already assumed to have money. You're traveling. A lot of them don't even travel to the next village over or the next town over. You are traveling the world, and you're showing up with nice clothing, possible watches, you're eating at their best restaurants, things like that. So be careful. The other one is this body of this gentleman and his two friends. They were found in an Airbnb. Now, an Airbnb is a great theory, but if I were traveling internationally, I would probably say I would opt for the resort. Now, it doesn't mean that things can't happen, but an Airbnb is just like your neighbor's house, whereas a resort is a whole structure, and it's built with the security, and it has a reputation to uphold. Where Airbnbs don't have to, because they can kind of pop up and pop down depending on at the owner's discretion what they want to do with their own property. So be careful in that context as well. And go places because you want to see, you know, the land. You want to travel to certain places. You're not just there for the people. As far as the women, it's a pretty, you know, shallow thing to do in the first place, but it will get you set up, because once people figure out this is why people are coming here, you're going to have other people getting them set up, and you're going to see a spike in, you know, people getting taken advantage of as far as travelers being robbed, things like that, or worse. So guys, what are your thoughts? Ace up the sleeve advice, comment, experience. And hopefully this resonates. If you know any travelers, you got to be careful on all levels, and it's not just third world countries. It could be anywhere, because crime exists anywhere. And anytime people see travelers, they know that you don't know the landscape. They know that you may not know the language or the lingo, and that you are traveling with your provisions, which would mean your clothes, your jewelry, and your money. So those are all things that can easily get somebody in a bad spot. So just be careful, guys. Hopefully, this finds everybody in a total place, pursuit, or beginnings of health, mind, body, and soul. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace, love, unity, solidarity.